Hi, everyone.
It worked. All right, we're live.
We're live. We're just doing a really quick, short little video here. We basically normally do like a little live video at the end of every season, and we talk a little bit about the season, and
sometimes we paint pumpkins for 2 hours.
Yes. And normally we do this like after our kids have gone to bed, but our children have learned to stay up later now. And so it's virtually impossible.
And we don't have additional energy beyond what we used to.
Yes, we're still just as tired. Yeah. So without further ado, here's a small bite-sized version of a little bit of a live video for y'all. What we were planning on talking about is a little bit of season 3 and also a little bit of season 4. So I know, as y'all know, hopefully, season 4 is going to be premiering next week, hopefully.
If we can record.
We are so behind on everything right now. I don't think we've shared with anyone yet, but we are actually planning on a big move. So we will probably talk about moving with autistic children.
I was going to say, there's great content right there. What to do, what not to do, all in...
So right now we're in the process of practicing those things out so that we have some feedback for you. Hello. Hi, is it Sajad? Hi. Thanks for tuning in. We're basically trying to figure out and fine tune how to best plan our move. Because, you know, with 2 autistic toddlers, it can be quite challenging.
Right. And then, because right now we live close to family, and now we're kind of shifting so they won't be able to have the same routines, or definitely breaking that up a little bit. So it'll definitely have its challenges. And I mean, we'll definitely keep you posted on what we've learned along the way and things to take into consideration if you and your family are planning a move in the near future, what things might work for you. All of this, of course, is based on our live experience.
Personal experience.
No results are guaranteed. So
if you guys are interested in like more specific like moving tips and stuff like that, I'll say stick around, because I want to make sure that what we try actually works before I give any advice.
We'll give it a little time just to make sure it actually works instead of just
we're not just gonna give you advice and assume it. So stick around for that. But I want to talk about the season that we just did, which was Hearth and Home, which was, I think, one of my favorite seasons, personally.
Yeah, it kind of kept it real, where it's focusing on the family and less about just kind of the, like, I mean, we touched on, like, the different ideas of...
There we go. We're back. I think I forgot to take it off of Wi-Fi.
Oh, so it's competing with cell and...
Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
I think I accidentally connected to our bad Wi-Fi instead of our good Wi-Fi.
Okay, so back to season 3.
So it might be choppy.
That's all right.
Yes.
No, so I agree with you. I like season 3 because it kind of gets back to the root of what's important, which is family, and kind of gets away from kind of just focusing solely on therapies and kind of the external things. I mean, because everything starts in the home. That is your cornerstone, your building block. I mean, if you don't have the setup... Oh my gosh, I don't even know where we left off.
We just keep getting cut off from the internet. Okay. What a great time.
Season 3, important because it focuses on the family.
Maybe season 4 should be about good internet. About that with the communication devices. But anyway, off track
again.
Yeah, we're really good at that.
But yeah, it's good focusing on the family because that's what makes everything possible. So, I mean, I actually like as we kind of...
Oh, sorry. Our connection's terrible. I think I fixed it, so hopefully this will work.
Fingers crossed.
But yes, we were focusing on the family, and one of the things that I thought was like really important that we touched on was not forgetting about siblings, because I think sometimes when you have a child who is diagnosed with something, whether that be autism or something else, a lot of times what can be the consequence of that is that you accidentally end up leaving out the other siblings, or you end up spending so much time with that one sibling that you're bringing to all the therapies and you're providing all this care for, that you naturally start to feel like more bonded to that child than the other children, simply because you're spending so much of your time with them.
And I was going to say, and sometimes we, not a caution, I mean, we're not aware of it sometimes when we do it with our kids, but it's strange because it kind of goes back and forth. So both of our daughters are autistic, but then sometimes one needs more attention than the other, and then sometimes it flips and the other one needs more attention. So it's kind of like a give and take of like who's pulling us back and forth at one. I mean, and it's honestly not on a day-to-day basis, on an hourly basis. I mean, sometimes our youngest wants more cuddles, and our oldest is really upset and sad and just needs kind of a hug. And so, I mean, it just kind of goes back and forth, just depending on their individual mood and what their individual needs are at that given time of the day. So, I mean, we find ourselves sometimes like, oh, okay, maybe we need to make sure that the little one or the older one have the time, just because like on one day it might be that we're focusing a little bit more on the little one versus the older one.
Yeah. So that for me was like one of the more important pieces, because when we first had that diagnosis for the older one, we didn't have it for the younger one. And we noticed that we were kind of paying more attention to the older one and trying to like, I guess we were still in that initial phase of like the shock, because it was the first diagnosis and we weren't really sure about it. So we started kind of like, I wouldn't say coddling, but kind of just paying extra care and attention. Well,
because the other thing was, at that time, our youngest wasn't diagnosed, which means she wasn't even set up for therapies.
But she was also like a baby. Like she was,
for sure.
She should have been, it could have also been that she was very colicky. And that made us instinctively want to be like, okay, let's spend time with the other one.
But it's interesting, though, because she was colicky and super loud, and our oldest was quiet, and now
it's completely reversed.
It's
now
not the same
totally
thing.
Opposite. Yeah.
So it's just interesting of how they kind of change and personalities come into play a little bit. But,
yeah. I think the other really important thing that we talked about in this season 3, was about self-care. Because self-care is something that I think a lot of parents and caretakers of autistic children struggle with. And I feel like there's usually several reasons, but one of them is mostly the fact that you just can't, because you need childcare, you need somebody to take care of your children so that you have the opportunity to even go and treat yourself in any way. But also, I think there's that whole parent guilt factor where it's kind of like, when you do leave, like when we went on that vacation, what did we do?
We were talking about our kids the whole time.
Yeah, we went on like a weekend vacation for our anniversary. It was our 5-year anniversary, and it was just a weekend trip because we couldn't really tolerate more than that.
Away from the kids.
Away from the kids, yeah.
or with each other, I don't know. No,
and like the whole time, all we were talking about was our kids, and like, oh, they would enjoy this, they would enjoy that. Right. So it was like, it was really refreshing because we actually got to sleep, which we didn't realize how sleep deprived we are.
Right, but the funny thing was also like, our family was telling us that the kids never asked about us, so it's very like,
so we missed them, but they didn't miss us.
Okay, that works. But no, I mean, and honestly, because if you get burned out, then there is no backup. I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, depending on how family, friends, whatever, like safety net you have. I mean, once you're burned out and aren't able to be in the best mindset to care for your little ones, then there's really not any like anyone else in like the reserves to like call up to take action. So I mean, I think as far as like giving yourself a little break when you can, or find small ways to get back to things that you used to enjoy doing, it kind of hits the reset a little bit. So so sometimes, like, obviously our girls are young, so they go to bed a little bit earlier. We're able to kind of sit and kind of watch TV and do like
whatever
fun things that we enjoy doing, that kind of give us a chance to hit the reset button a little bit. So
yeah, because I know like a lot of times there is kind of this it's kind of like a stigma of, if you're a parent, then you need to solely focus on your child, and then people forget about self-care. And then if you're seen as caring for yourself, then they automatically assume you're neglecting your child or something like that. So I feel like there can easily be a healthy balance between the two, but don't look at me for that balance because I'm terrible at it. Because self-care is just, it's not in my vocabulary for myself, ironically. But it's something that I think this season kind of helped shed some light on because...
Well, at least calls it out, so you're at least aware of, oh, okay, this is something that I still need to focus on myself.
Yeah, and work on.
And I mean, I think there were a number of things that kind of put into perspective our lives a little bit as well, as far as like, oh, okay, like expanding the family. And we kind of give like our take on it as far as like, there's been numerous dad groups that I've been in where they're kind of like questioning, like, oh, should we like try for another kid or whatnot? So it lets us also reflect as well to see like, oh, okay, like, I mean, we're kind of, I mean, down the road, future, possibly, considering like expanding our family as well. So it kind of lets us reflect on, oh, okay, like what are some of the like pros, cons, like how would that work out kind of moving forward in our life? So it kind of takes us back to, instead of us just having like a one-way conversation, it kind of forces us to kind of also reflect on our current situation and kind of like, well, how do we really feel about this, and kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm. And I think that this season, Hearth and Home, was particularly important because I feel like a lot of times when it comes to autism and a diagnosis, is the first thing that we focus on is like the therapies. And we did, obviously, in the way that we laid out the podcast, because naturally that is what people focus on. Right. They focus on, okay, here's the problem. What can I do to fix it? Essentially, that's the mentality that a lot of people go into. Not saying that we should try to fix it, but I guess what I'm saying is we often forget about what I think is actually the more important thing, and that is the family unit. I personally am a strong believer of family is really at the core of everything, and that if you have a strong family foundation, like that will help with everything else in life. And so for us, that has definitely been the case. And for us, an autism diagnosis just brought us closer together and has made our family a little more solid. So I feel like, oh, thank you.
I'll hold the phone for a little bit.
Yeah, I get to rest my hands. So I feel like essentially when it comes to the Hearth and Home and family unit, that was, for me personally, really, really important, because I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that. Like, a lot of people talk about like the practicalities of like, okay, what can I do therapy-wise? What items or equipment can I get for my child to help them?
And we did do, we focused obviously setting it up as far as like, okay, day one, you see red flags in season one. So, okay, how do you navigate that? So I think ours was a very practical approach to, okay, you think there's a suspicion that you might be dealing with autism. What do you do? So I think that was the best approach, just in general, because, I'm just thinking if we were to put season 3 as season 1, it might not be as helpful for people, because they might be thinking like, how can I possibly do anything about self-care if I don't know anything about the developmental pediatrician. Yeah. Setting up for diagnosis. How do I navigate therapies? So if you start off with like, oh, let's focus on the family and self-care. Oh, do we want to expand the family? I feel like we would lose kind of
that is kind of like a weird thing to start with.
Right. The momentum. So I feel like it would be necessary to start off kind of with the importance, as far as like, okay, why therapies are important. What benefits have we seen? What other advantages or little life hacks have we discovered along the way? So I think once you set the ground, then you can kind of focus on other things that are equally as important.
I'm getting really distracted with the hand. Move your hand. See? It's really creepy because it looks like it's going to grab my head. Yeah, I'm allowed to do that. I have ADD. So yeah, I think that is a good point. And so we're kind of bringing this full circle. So we started with like the diagnosis, and then the second season we worked about all the senses, and then third season we talked about, bringing it back to the home. And now with our fourth season,
I haven't even looked up at the diagram to see what we're talking about.
Yes.
I think we mentioned
I think this season is called, I believe it's Work to Be Done.
Yes, okay, that's right.
Yeah. And so this season is kind of like a metaphorical work to be done. It's not necessarily physical work to be done, but it's kind of like, we've gone through the process of educating ourselves about autism. We've gone through the process of focusing on what's really important in life, and, that being the family unit and our connection to each other as a family. Mm-hmm. And then we focus on creating a good foundation for our child and our children. And so after that, work to be done is kind of like focusing on like, okay, now let's get down to the nitty gritty and like, what is the actual work? Like, what are things that I need to do that might take a little more effort that I can work on to try to improve my child's life or to try to improve just kind of like the family unit in general. So just things like that where it's kind of like, getting kind of deeper into the things that might need a little more elbow grease.
Well, it's because I think like with the family, focusing on the family unit for Hearth and Home, it kind of like scratched the surface for like, okay, like kind of redirecting it back to the household. So now it's kind of like rolling up your sleeves a little bit and kind of like
the dirty work that you got to do.
Right. So I mean, it's still kind of in line, I think, a little bit with season 3, but it's kind of more, I would say, more building off of the concepts we've kind of
and expanding beyond the family. So like some of the things that we'll talk about is like advocacy work, like things for advocating for your child, whether that be in school if you're fighting for like your IEPs, or whether that be in the world if you're trying to fight for, you know, your child's right to exist. And I know that sounds terrible, but there are people out there that just don't understand. Shifting hands. Hi. But yeah, I think that that's like an important thing to do. And this is very awkward. I don't like this.
Maybe I'll hold it like this.
Yes. But I think that that's something that we essentially need to like work on in terms of advocacy work. And then there's other topics in there that we'll be talking about as well. But all of them surround the goal of like things that we still need to strive towards in the autistic community and in the world of autism, because currently I do feel like there's not really enough being done. So a lot of it is kind of advocacy, but it's also like teaching yourself how to advocate for your child, teach your child how to advocate for themselves, things like that.
Well, because you would be, I mean, the best, I mean, advocate for your kid. I mean, obviously, either they would be or you would be, essentially. I mean, because you're their first line of defense against everyone in the world, so therefore you are their strongest advocate, so might as well be well equipped.
Yes.
So
that's a little bit of a teaser for the next season, which is supposed to premiere next Friday. I don't even know what date we are now. But I also did. 1st, I think. Yes.
April 1st.
I also did want to, see that falls right on Autism Awareness Month or Autism Acceptance Month. So I also wanted to just put that little reminder in everyone's calendar that Autism Acceptance Month is right around the corner. I am going to be posting some more fun facts, quote unquote, about autism. None of them are fun. Spoiler alert. They're usually sad because they're the truth and reality of the needs, the desperate needs in the autistic community. So I post them for a reason, though. I want the world to be aware of like where there's needs and where things are lacking so that we can work towards trying to fill those needs. And so it all starts with awareness before we can even get to acceptance. So that's definitely something that I will be sharing, and that's something that we do as part of Autism Acceptance Month. And then beyond that, I do want to put in a little side note that because April is actually the month we will be packing up to do our big move. That's quarter cross country, not quite cross country. I may be a little more silent, and I'm sure that people might be noticing we're not posting as much on Autism Wish lately, and that's been mostly because we've been closing on a home and we're in the process of packing up to move and all of that stuff. So we will still be posting all the autistic facts that we put usually for Autism Acceptance Month, but we might be a little quieter for other things. So just have patience with us during the month of April into early May as we get settled into our new home.
Is it sad that when you said you'd be a little bit more quiet, I was thinking in the podcast, and I was like, are you like expecting me to talk more?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
And I was
Get you to do a solo show.
Well, that's what I was like wondering. I was like, well, that's not good. Like
crickets.
Just like silence and then just me, and I'm like, why won't you?
You could just talk to yourself. I mean, it could be like 2 versions of yourself.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens if you get a podcast episode of Matt just talking to himself.
Just the listens just going through the roof.
You might get a lot of listens if you suddenly break out into multiple personalities.
Probably not.
Anyways, that's pretty much all we have for you guys. I just wanted to give you a little summary and a little heads up of what's coming in the future. We will be releasing the new season, and then we will be putting together more stuff for the Autistic Pride Month. Or the other thing that we have coming up is the Earmuff Drive.
For the 4th.
Yeah, for the 4th of July. So we will release more information about that shortly as the date approaches. If you have not yet, make sure to sign up to our newsletter on autismwish.org, because only those who are subscribed to our newsletter will get an invitation to the Earmuff Drive. So make sure you've done that. Again, autismwish.org. And that's pretty much all I have. One more reminder. Tomorrow night is our monthly parent support group. And so, is that tomorrow night or is it next week?
Might be next week because it's the first of the month, right?
It's the first of the month, so I don't know what day tomorrow.
I think that's next week.
Okay, so next week, the first Saturday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern Time will be the monthly parent support group, and that's where a bunch of parents of autistic children get together. We chat. I'm always there. So if you have any questions, you can always feel free to ask me there. But we just have like a relaxed private area where we can all kind of like just be friends, hang out, talk about anything we want to talk about. It can be autistic related, doesn't have to be, but it just gives you space to kind of just be able to be yourself and like hang out with people who understand and relate. So
snack foods are welcome.
Yeah, you can bring your own virtual snacks or real ones. You just can't, share them. Sure. All right, that's all I have for you guys. So, do you have anything else?
Nope, I think we're good.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.